YouTube and Twitch. This is Mike November Whiskey coming in from Bali in beautiful Indonesia. We are in the Republic Indonesia livery tonight, which is the official aircraft livery of the Indonesian president and vice president, although I believe they fly around in a 737, and we are, of course, in the fly-by-wire A320 experimental version. And tonight is a pretty special night because they had a pretty awesome release. Holds and limited Hoppie ACARS integration is now available. I'm not too familiar with ACARS systems, but we are going to explore what they've added to the sim. And we don't have ATC coverage at the moment, but I think regardless, we are going to try out the hold functionality and see how that works. Beyond that, the grander plan is we are flying from Bali today to Whiskey Alpha Tango. Tango is in the east of Indonesia, on the island of Timor, I believe. And once we get there, that will be the last stopover before we start our tour of Australia to check out World Update 7, beginning with the flight to Darwin. The flight into Bali was absolutely stunning. Definitely check out that video. The scenery and the landscape and just the approach, just absolutely awesome. So I imagine our departure today will be equally as epic, and yeah, we'll get to enjoy all that Southeast Asia has to offer from the sky. So with all of that preamble, I think we can jump into our cockpit, which is currently cold and dark. This is a pay edition of the Bali airport. It is probably one of the most detailed airports I've seen. Just hop back out real quick, take a look at the detail. It looks absolutely stunning, even down to the surrounding buildings and the greenery and the courtyards. The only thing I noticed that maybe falls short from some other scenery I've seen is you can't see into the interiors of the buildings. The windows are not transparent and it doesn't seem like interiors are modeled. But the exterior is so ornate it almost doesn't matter. And of course the taxiways and runways and all the various taxiway markings look incredible. So overall, very happy with the scenery, and I will definitely come back and fly here again, get my money's worth. Anyway, we are back in the cockpit, Indonesia 1, cold and dark. And we'll go ahead and get our initial flows going. External power, get those batteries on. And we'll do all the flows necessary to start boarding, since boarding will be the longest process, and we are about 24 minutes from departure. So I'd like to try to depart on time. Starting to practice for across the pond, which is coming up in a few months. More on that later. Turn the nav and logo lights on, let them know that we're in the cockpit. We'll get crew supply, oxygen on, ground controls auto, we'll get the aiders aligning, the IRSs rather. And let's do the APU fire tests and the engine fire tests. And cargo smoke. Alright, that is all good. So with that, I'll get the APU started. 1, 2, 3. Because we'll need the APU bleed on before we can let passengers on board. Let's get some of those emergency lights and no smoking lights on. And get some panel lights up because the backlighting is so nice. We'll hold off on fuel pumps and no seatbelt sign until folks are, until refueling is complete. Setting up our screens, we'll start by just adjusting brightness of PFD and ND. Beautiful day here in Bali, so definitely need the brightness up for that. Heading to the glare shield, make sure we're on QNH. Constraints, go ahead and turn this flight director off and these screens off because we don't have a co-pilot today. Maybe one day we'll get someone to fly with us. And we'll set up the rest of the glare shield once we pick up our weather and once we look at our departure. Get that brightness up a bit. That looks good. Coming down here, getting this all set up. All good there. And cockpit oxygen looks fine. Cabin door still open. APU is available. So actually, before we continue, let's go ahead and start our boarding. So we want weights and balance. Let's see how many folks are flying with us today. 150 passengers. Nice round number. We'll get them boarded. Excellent. Coming back here, so we checked our cockpit oxygen. We have hydraulic fluid. And we have oil. Fantastic. We'll get back to the flight control page. Actually, no, we'll check the door page. We want to make sure that cabin door is nice and sealed before we leave. Clock is correct. It's 1:55 Zulu. And anti-skid is on. Coming down the panel here, we have our thrust levers. They're in the idle position. We're on Unicom for our departure. It's got some of these integrated lights on. Weather system is off, engine masters are off, engine mode is normal. We don't want to be squawking yet, but yeah, we'll be squawking 1200. Or do we want to squawk 7000? I think when we're flying internationally, we want to squawk 7000. So let's go ahead and put 7000 in. I'll double check that further along, but that is in and ready. Ground spoilers are disarmed and retracted, flaps are retracted, nose trim is neutral, doors unlocked, parking brake is engaged, and that all looks good. So those initial flows are complete. Next up, let's get the fuel going. In order to figure out how much fuel we need, let's sync up with SimBrief. We'll get our weather in a second. Hop to the operating flight plan. And looking here, it's planning for a block of 8.2 tons, which is a bit high, and that's because we didn't have great options for alternates tonight. Our alternate is actually Darwin, which is our next destination. So if there's any reason why we can't land at Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango, we'll just continue on to Darwin, but it will be double the flight time. There were some other options. The distances weren't too different than Darwin, and since we want to go to Darwin anyway on the next leg, not too bad if something happens along the way for whatever reason. But looks like we should check the weather to make sure we don't want to take any more, because we can take more. We're by no means near the maximum weight for this aircraft. And actually, let's just double check that. So takeoff weight, yeah, no, we got 13 tons of wiggle room there. So coming down to the weather, which will be the ultimate determinant of it, whether we want to take more fuel or not. Departure looks good. No winds practically. Great visibility. Few clouds. Nice and warm. Everything looks great. At the destination, some moderate winds. I'd call those light winds actually. Decent visibility. Few clouds of 15. CB. CB. I'll have to look up what that acronym stands for. But broken at 1600, also pretty warm, no significant weather. Remark CB to SW. So actually, let's look up quickly what those abbreviations mean on the METAR, and we can all learn it together. So CB on the METAR. I should just print out the acronym list. That'd be easier. CB is cumulonimbus. Cumulonimbus is thunderstorms, if I'm not mistaken, or potential for thunderstorms. Typically clouds you want to avoid flying directly into. And SW. Oh, cumulonimbus to the southwest is what I'm assuming that stands for. I don't think SW means what it means on the METAR abbreviation, which would be snow shower. So yes, cumulonimbus to the southwest. Good to know. We will keep our eye out for that. And looking at the other... that looks fine. Alright, looks like light rain a bit later on. We should get there before then, I believe. Let's just double check. Yeah, I think we should be fine. Okay. Great, so we'll go ahead and put in A208 for our fuel. and start loading up about 6 minutes. No problem. So let's go ahead and brief the rest of our flight plan. Make sure everything's correct. We are at Bali. We are heading to Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango. No change in time zone. We are in the fly-by-wire A320nx. LEAP engines. That's all correct. We have our alternate, which is Yankee Papa Delta November, which is Darwin in Australia. We are Indonesia 9084 tonight, cost index 15, flight level 370, triple pause, nice and high, and trip wind, a headwind of 12 knots, which will slow us down just a little bit, but we are expecting about an hour and a half in the air. So, pretty quick flight tonight. All right, and shear rate pretty low, not expecting too much turbulence then. Planned optimum flight level, so it is lower than our max, but maybe the winds are the most favorable, 370. And looks like we are flying runway 9, which makes sense with no winds. Runway 9 gets us an eastward departure via the Angsa 3 Alpha departure, and we'll be landing runway 25 via the WAGIP 1 Delta. Great. Let's double check. Runway 25 makes sense with winds out of 14. Yeah, it's fine. Oh no, that's the time. Winds out of 228 knots. Yeah, that makes total sense. It'll be taking runway 25. So that all checks out. Let's go ahead and get our chart set up. There we are in Bali. Let's just connect to SimBrief here. And that looks pretty good to me. Heading to the Bali charts. Got the airport briefing so we can brief our taxi. Should be nice and simple. And take our SID, Angsa 3 Alpha. That would be this chart. And for our emergency procedures, for taking off runway 9, we will plan... Yeah, I guess if we have to, we'll do the RMP approach, misapproach procedure for any emergencies, and we'll brief that in a little bit. Alright, so to take a closer look at our departure tonight, looks like our initial climb out is going to be 8,000 feet, so we'll get that in the glare shield. And before we get to the glare shield, I'm not seeing any speed restrictions either, which is fine. This is a pretty straightforward exit. It's nice. Let's go ahead and we got our weather ready, but let's get our QNH 1009. So head to the glare shield. Just adjust that down to 109. And we want 8,000 feet programmed in. Great. Alright, still refueling, still loading passengers. So while that continues, let's go ahead and get the box set up. I think it's a good time. So starting on data, IRS is our nav. Fantastic. Nice and aligned. Check AC status. LEAP engines are correct. We have the latest AIRAC cycle. That's all good. Init 1. Pull in from SimBrief and check everything looks correct. So Whiskey Alpha Delta Delta to Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango. Our alternate is Darwin. We are Indonesia 9084. Constant index is 15. And flight level is 370. That all looks good. Let's double check that tropopause. I do like to put in the tropopause level in the flight plan. So 53745. Because it tends to be a better average from my experience. Alright, heading to flight plan now. Pretty straightforward route without the approaches or departure routes in. Let's see how that changes when we add our departure information. So runway 9, and we're doing the Angsa 3 Alpha, is that right? Yeah. Angsa 3 Alpha. And insert. Oh, there it is, all loaded up. And let's take a look and compare it with the chart, make sure it all looks good. So hopping over to plan mode. Bawal is the first. Constraints are not showing up, but that's no problem. We know what they are from the chart. And from Bawal, we're going to codot to root to Angza. And Angza, we have a duplicate. So go ahead and clear that. Something I've noticed from SimBrief flight plans is typically they add the last waypoint in the SID, and when you load the SID in the box, that waypoint just tends to get duplicated. Not a big deal. Alright, and then from Angsa, it's a long leg to our decel point to kind of direct to the airport. Actually, we have another discontinuity. So we'll clear that for now, and we'll program our approach when we're in the air. But that should recalculate our decel point. Yep, and there it is. That looks a lot better. Okay, great. Flight plan looks good. We are fine on the departure. Transition altitude's 11,000. We'll just remember that when we get to the next step. I'll go ahead and close that for now. Rad navs, you know, I closed it prematurely. I didn't see any VORs that'd be relevant, but let's just double check on our missed approach. Sorry, not missed approach, our emergency procedure. So, Kuta 3000. Again, don't need a rad nav, but we will put in a fix for Kuta. And I'll explain why in a little bit. And do we need a radial? No, it's just a direct to. Excellent. So I will actually just peek and look ahead for a second, because I want to make sure we get an opportunity to try out the hold feature. So our approach is going to be via the WAGUP 1 Delta. That'd be on this one. And there is WAGUP 1 Delta to Kupang to Ebisav, and there is a hold point there. So you know what? This is where we will test our hold. Excellent. So that's all good. All right. So back to rad. So no rad navs for this departure. Let's check on our weights and balances. And we are fully boarded. Fantastic. And are we still fueling? We are not. So let's take a quick break to... Oh, AP bleed was not on. Apologies, passengers. That's bad of me. We'll get those fuel pumps on at this point and turn on the seatbelt sign. Alright, and we'll continue setting up the box. So we'll head to init B. Our weights should be set now, 58.1 tons. It should match exactly. Yes, it does. That's always nice. It doesn't work out that way in real life, but it is nice to do in the sim. Out of curiosity, let's see how much fuel they think we need. Absolutely not. I mean, that's fine without the alternate, but we are going to put in 8.2 tons. And we want to program the headwind in of 12 knots. So, H for headwind, 12, and it will calculate. It'll take a few minutes off our fuel time. And let's go in and put the additional information. So we want to put in 0.6, 3, and 1. 0.6 for reserve, 3 for our alternate, and 1. And there, our extra time went down significantly to 15 minutes, but that is in the pocket. considering all the extra fuel we are planning for in case something happens. So that looks good to me. And finally, to the performance page, and a page I absolutely love to play with because I have this beautiful offline Excel calculator to calculate our flex temperature. So for this, I need some information about the weather, and I need some information about the airport. So, starting with runway information, runway 9 is on an 87-degree heading. Elevation is pretty much down to sea level, it's 11 feet. The length, which will be the most important factor here today, I think, is 3,000 meters. And winds, what did we say winds were? So winds are variable at 2 knots, so I'll just, for the purpose of the calculator, give it runway heading, and 2 knots. Outside air temperature is 29 degrees Celsius. QNH is 1009. Conditions are dry. Our takeoff weights, because weight is an important factor, is 66 tons. We want to do a flex takeoff configuration 1. We'll have our packs off. Takeoff center of gravity for that initial trim, sorry, that's in the fuel prediction page, is 25.1. Nice and balanced. And we are getting flex data. So according to the calculator, we'll be taking off flaps 1 and trim will be 0.7 up. Get that in there. Our flex temperature is 65 degrees. And what the flex temp setting allows us to do, it allows us to perform a takeoff at less than full power, which just helps save life and maintenance on the engines. Transition altitude is fine, that's from the charts. And V speeds, these will be incorrect. Yep, they are. Our V speeds, our V1 speed tonight is 149. Our rotation speed is 150. And V2 is 151. Excellent. So that all looks good. And let's get the ground crew attached.
Cockpit to ground.
This is ground. Stand by. Okay, sir. The bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all ground equipment is removed.
The parking brakes are set. You may lift.
Parking brake set. Lifting the aircraft. Standing by for pushback.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and do our before start checklist to the line. So cockpit prep is complete. Fuel message is sent. Gear pins and covers are removed. Signs are on and auto. So get that to auto. We'll get the beacon on in a second. Aiders are nav. Fuel quantity is set. Takeoff data is set. Bower ref is set. Before start checklist to the line. So let's go ahead and just do our quick radio call. We'll do our before start checklist below the line, and then we'll get pushing back. And we are in Unicom, yes. Bali traffic, Indonesia 9084 at stand Alpha 25 at Bali International, pushing back and starting our engines. Alright, below the line, windows and doors are closed, beacon is on. Thrust levels are idle, parking brake as required. Before start checklist, below the line, complete. It's fine. Cool. So let's go ahead and disconnect from external power because the APU is running nicely. And I think we can let them know we're ready.
Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead.
We are cleared for start and push. Parking brake set.
Okay, cleared for push start. Please release parking brake.
So watch this red light. It will go off when I turn the parking brake off.
Parking brakes are released.
Amazing.
Commencing pushback. You can start the engines in sequence.
It will start in the sequence.
All right, ignition, engine 2 start. And we're going to face west. Yeah, we're pushing back at 1/4 past the hour. We are right on time. All right. Engine 1 start. There are cars on the runway. That's going to be a problem. Yeah, that's good enough. Just wait for that engine start to complete. Oh, get the clock running. All right, 2 good engine starts.
Okay, pushback completed. Please set your parking brake.
Parking brake set.
Parking brake set. Lowering aircraft.
Ground. Startup is complete. You may disconnect.
Roger. Good engine start. Cleared to disconnect. See you at the side. Have a good flight.
Holding position waiting for the visual. Thank you and goodbye.
And there they go. I think normally they would wave the pin, but Sim hasn't modeled that just yet. Alright, but we have 2 good engine starts, so we can get the APU bleed off and the APU off as well. Preparing for taxi, get those taxi lights on. Overhead panel looks good. Let's go ahead and set our trim to up 0.7. Make sure that looks right. Yep. And we want to arm our spoilers at this point to set our flaps to takeoff setting, which is at 1. Lock the door. After start checklist, anti-ice is not required. ECAM status is checked. Pitch trim is set. Rudder trim is set to 0 after start checklist complete. Quickly brief, we'll be taxiing via November Papa to November 7 for runway 9. Excellent. So, doing everything I can before we actually get rolling. Let's do flight control check real quick. So full left, full right, nooch, full down, full back, nooch, disconnect that rudder nose wheel, left, right, nooch. And before we get rolling, let me make sure my nose wheel control is working properly. Doesn't look like it's really calibrated properly. Because I've been having issues with it. I'm just going to check the controls real quick. Because for whatever reason, this joystick has been a little sticky. So I use the T16000 for rudder control. Yeah, it's not really calibrated, is it? So I'm just going to pull it out, put it back in. That usually helps. Check it again. And now it's dead center. See? That's so weird. I set the dead zone just a little lower. And done. Apply and save. Go back. Hopefully nothing's broken. That looks a lot better, eh? Right there on 0. Alright. Parking brakes released. Let's roll to our runway. Alright, while we are rolling, we'll get that weather system online, predictive wind shear system online. We'll set ATC to auto. And let's also do our emergency brief. Have a little cheat sheet here. Alright, so if there's an issue on the way to the runway, I'll bring the airplane to a complete stop. I'll clear any ECAM messages. If ATC is available, I'll notify them of the situation, and then we'll make a decision whether to return to the gate or to continue as planned. If on takeoff there is any kind of failure before 100 knots or V1, I will call out the malfunction and call stop or go. If I call stop, I'll apply the rejected takeoff procedure and bring the airplane to a complete stop. I'll set the parking brake and call attention crew at station, and I'll monitor reverse screen and decel and silence any oral warnings and inform ATC of the issue. Then we will carry out ECAM actions. If evacuation is required, we will carry out the emergency evacuation checklist. If there's a failure after V1, we are committed to takeoff, and we will continue. There'll be no further action before 400 feet AGL, except for silencing of alarms and gear up. When we reach 400 feet AGL, I'll take any ECAM actions as necessary, and if there is an engine failure, damage, or fire, when engine is secured, I'll stop ECAM, level off, accelerate, and clean up. If engine is not secured, I'll continue climbing until engine is secured, but not above the engine out maximum acceleration altitude. At green dot, I'll set open climb and select MCT on the throttle. And resume ECAM messages, complete after takeoff checklist, and check the status. In the event of an emergency on takeoff, we will fly the missed approach routing for runway 9. So we'll climb on course at 87 degrees at or above 2000. We'll turn right direct to Kuta at 3000 and hold and at the hold point we'll decide whether to return to the airport or continue as planned. And that, friends, is my best attempt at an emergency briefing. Let's slow down here for this turn. Nice and easy taxi tonight. I'll take this below 10 knots. Go ahead and stop here. Cabin check.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Takeoff config. Set landing lights. Set lights at takeoff. Strobes are on. At this point, we'll set ATC to on, and we'll turn on our TCAS. And we'll do our before takeoff checklist. Flight controls are checked. Flight instruments are checked. Briefing is confirmed. Flap setting is set. V speeds are set. Flex temp is inputted. ATC is set. ECAM memo and no blue. Takeoff runway. Oh, well, I will take care of that as we roll on. Well, actually, I can confirm here. Takeoff runway confirmed. Cabin crew's been advised. TCAS is set. Engine mode is set to a normal. Now it is. And the packs will turn off for our flex takeoff. Before takeoff checklist complete. Bali traffic, Indonesia 9084, taking off runway 9. Check left, don't see anyone in approach. Runway is clear. Let's roll. Let's fly. So I'll do my best at a 90-degree turn here so we can maximize our runway roll. Because when we're doing flex, we are maximizing all of the runway we have. And turn. Did I time it right? That was pretty good. I overshot. But I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Alright. Takeoff. Thrust to 50%. Engine stable. Man flex SRS. So long, Bali. 100 knots, easing back on the stick. What's that car doing? V1, rotate. Positive rate, gear up. That is pretty sweet. And approaching acceleration altitude. Set to the climb detent. Thrust climb, climb. Leveling out a little bit to allow us to accelerate to green dot. And continuing our climb to 8,000. Speed checked, flaps up. Speed brakes disarmed. Those lights are off. We'll get those packs back on. And we'll just hand fly this a little bit until we get closer to our initial climb at altitude. Because it's such a beautiful day. Winds are practically non-existent, and it just feels good to hand fly. We're about 12 miles from our first waypoint. Speed Alt Star. Easing to that initial climb out. And autopilot is engaged. That was a beautiful departure. Let's see what's next for us. So as we pass CODOT, great, we'll be able to get up to 240. We could probably just clear ourselves to cruise at that point. So once we get clear of this next waypoint, we'll clear ourselves up. Getting views. Oh, that's pretty cool. Just such a cool livery. And there's Bali in the background. I mean, the landscapes are just absolutely awesome. Beautiful colors. Alright, we are turning, and that means we are going up. 37,000 feet, open climb. Thrust climb, open climb. Up we go. Alright, after takeoff, climb checklist, landing gears up, flaps retracted, packs are on, bow ref is set. After takeoff checklist complete. The next checks will be at 10,000 feet, which we'll get to in no time. Alright, go ahead and get those landing lights off. Get that to airport. And I think at this point you can turn the seatbelt signs off. It'll be nice and smooth. Starting to accelerate. Okay. Everything looks good, friends. Everything looks real good. So on our climb, I'm going to do a quick check of VATSIM. I've also been monitoring POSCON lately. Have not seen a ton of activity on POSCON. I do like their interface, I do like their commitment to realism, but they haven't really reached critical mass yet to be a viable alternative to VATSIM. So that is why we are on VATSIM tonight. Even though we don't have ATC coverage, there is definitely traffic in the vicinity. So let's see how Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango looks tonight. It looks like we are the only aircraft on VATSIM heading there tonight. But there are other planes in the area, at least in the airspace. One's heading to Jakarta, so we may pass close to them. Oh, set QNH to standard. And we'll check our en routes. We can do our top of descent calculation now, actually, because we know the altitude we'll be flying at. And we'll need to know what our cruise will be. So you know what? I probably will have to wait till we get to top. So, never mind. I usually do that when we get to our top of climb, because then I could just have it sink and get the best calculations possible. I could probably put in the speeds I need from the flight plan, but I'm not going to bother. I'll just wait. I won't know what the actual prevailing winds will be. I know, like, we're expecting an average headwind of 12 knots, but so far that hasn't materialized. The air is dead still. What we can do is take a closer look at the comms. Huh. So I'm not exactly sure how to use the ACARS system. So I'm actually going to pull up the release notes and see what we learn. Because I signed up for the Hoppie account. Let's see. I saw it on Twitter today, so I'm just going to pull up that Twitter post. Alright, so oh, wait, I think I have to activate it in settings. I think here, connect. There we go. So, did that do anything? Alright, so, let me just read the instructions. It's really the best thing to do. It's configured. Let's see. Wow. So this system really is only useful if there are controllers online that accept it. So since we're not in controlled airspace at the moment, we won't really be able to do anything. Let me run through some of these motions here just to kind of look at the menus, just to familiarize myself. So there's one thing we could do. If we're on the ground, we can actually get our departure clearance via the system using this depart request. I put in my gate information. And the station, I guess, would be the airport. Oh, we can put our ATIS information there. That's pretty cool. Alright, so on routes. Alright, so how do we use en routes CPDLC? So there's the Hoppie network. That's the free text. Doesn't really say. Where to go to the communication. It's not connection. Oh, notification. Ah, here we go. Here we go. So here we put in the ATC center. Oh, but that looks like a looks like a typo. So it should say ATC center, not ACT. That is a bug. Yeah, I'll have to watch some more. Tutorials on this feature. But it's pretty cool that they've added it. I'm curious, like, how many controllers use the Hoppie network. Ah, but let me find online stations. There's actually a directory, and let me see if we're included in the list. Yeah, there we are. There we are. I see a bunch of call signs, a bunch of airports. Yep. Very interesting. I'm not seeing any US stations using this. So let me actually just check VATSIM and just see who's online. Yeah, like LFXX. Where is that? Is that in Europe? No one in Europe is online. So Zulu, Sierra, Lima. Yeah. Well, maybe once adoption is a bit more ubiquitous, we'll be able to enjoy that feature. Alright, so we're still making our way up to 37,000 feet. And once we get to the top of the climb, we'll see how much time is left on this trip and plan our descent accordingly. Just to get a preview, we're expected to arrive at 40 past the hour, so that just gives us a little less than an hour left. That time will go down once we get to cruise, but may go up after we program our approach. Take a look outside. It's 60 frames per second. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. We've been very lucky with the weather. Just taking a few minutes breather before we get to cruise, and we will pick back up again. Alright, Mach Alt Cruise. Welcome to cruising altitude, everyone. Haha! Okay. Now, let's get some realness going. Let's see what our current estimate is. 40 past the hour. So that gives us exactly 50 minutes. So in 10 minutes, we will brief the full approach, get a weather, all that good stuff. But for now, I just want to make sure our top of descent looks right. So I'm just going to look at the star and look for our first altitude restriction. And there's like none. What is happening here? Where's the... Waka Point Delta, arrival from Waka VOR. Proceed to KPG VOR and then SBOV. But you're not telling me how I need to descend. So I'm guessing what actually happens in this case is ATC will just feed you your descent. There are rad navs here. Let's take a look at the approach for runway. Was that 25? Bet you there's not even an ILS. Oh, there is an ILS. Thank goodness. They are my good friend. So we'll want to be at 4,000 feet at SBOV. Okay. So that will be our point. And SBOV is the last transition. And this will actually be good because we're going to try the hold feature. But we would have to circle anyway to get onto this ILS approach, which is fascinating. So I'm just assuming that, like in real life, most people don't fly the full approach, and ATC kind of vectors them at some point. But in any case, we'll plan to get down to 4,000 by SBOV. So let's go to our fixes. We can clear Kuta. We don't need it anymore. And we're going to put in SBOV. SBOV. And let's calculate the distance we want to be. So, picture from sim. We'll sync that from the sim. Our target altitude is 4,000 feet. Ah! That's weird. So we want to start our descent 104 nautical miles. Let's do 115 nautical miles to be safe, because that's just a lot of room for error. So back to the box, and we'll do a radius of 115 nautical miles. And we'll come back to our flight plan. Zoom out far enough. There is our top of descent, roughly 240 miles from now. Great. So we'll kill some time for about 10 minutes, and then we'll brief our approach. Brave. Oh my god, Frontier and Spirit are merging. Frontier bought Spirit. Goodness. Alright, let's see how we're doing. Yep, still on time, about 40 minutes out. Over the water, about to pass over this beautiful island here. I think we can go ahead and brief the approach. So let's go ahead and get the rest of our charts. There's still no ATC. We'll just do a last check. Make sure no one's come online. It's looking pretty quiet in Southeast Asia. Yeah, the closest station's up in the Philippines. A little bit around Melbourne. Yeah, so we can assume we'll be clearing ourselves in tonight. So we have our approach. We have our ILS. Let's get some taxi information. Very small airport. Very short runway. We may actually need some more aggressive braking on this one, although it is long enough for an A320. So yeah, we'll be probably getting off at Alpha, maybe even having to do a back taxi, but we'll try to be out by Alpha, and just then we're there. So very simple. All aircraft. Now let's make a one-wheel lock turn along runway 75. Okay, that's fine. Oh, hi Ivan, welcome to the channel. No, we have not tried holding yet. We're going to try our hold here at the SBOV waypoint, and we're probably, I'd give it about half an hour away from giving that a shot. So, okay, so we'll make sure to calculate runway there. We are going to be flying via the Whiskey Golf Papa 1 Delta approach, so we'll put in a couple of VORs for that approach. No altitude restrictions, so we're just going to clear ourselves down to 4,000 feet by SBOV once we get to the top of descent point that we calculated. Alright, pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and program that into the box. Arrival, ILS runway 25. Whiskey Golf Papa 1 Delta. Via SBOV. Go ahead and insert that. And what was that beep? Interesting. Never heard that before. Let's go to the plan and take a look at this. From Wagup to Kilo Papa Golf to SBOV, and then the final approach on the ILS, which that looks about right. Yeah, Charlie, India 25, Foxtrot India 25. Yeah. That all looks fine to me. The course lines are all wonky because we're at cruise speed, but as of course we get slower and closer, that will all recalculate and make a bit more sense. Alright, we're about 160 miles from our top of descent. We had some radnavs to program in, so we'll get those in now. So the two we wanted are on the approach plate. So of course, Whiskey Golf Papa. We'll put that in the second one, because we'll be using Kilo Papa Golf both on the approach and on the ILS. Or 2.2. That all looks good. I'm debating if we want to put course information. It's probably not necessary because it is an ILS. Let's just look at the missed approach procedure in case we do want a course. I'm trying to head to 1500, turn right, proceed to SBOV 4000 for holding or destructing ATC. Yeah, so that's all GPS based. Yeah, so we'll leave that as is. And get those on. We're getting Whiskey Golf Papa, but we're still quite a ways from Kilo Papa Golf. Alright, continue descent prep, fuel prediction looks good even for our alternate, which is really far away. We're now expected at the airport at 49 past the hour. And I might give it another few minutes before we get our final weather. But I'm not expecting it to change all that much. It seemed pretty nice over there. Potential for thunderclouds, but... So one thing we can do now, if we know we want to try hold at SBOV, let's go ahead and program that into the McDo right now. So this is actually not going to be very straightforward for us because we'll be approaching the hold point from here. So I'm going to assume if we do it's a left hand. I'm trying to think how we would enter this. We'd probably want a teardrop around. Or no, we probably do want a parallel insert this way. But would we still consider this a left hand hold? Let's play around with the feature and see what we can figure out. So clicking into SBOV, we want to hold here. And that doesn't look right at all. Unless it's still thinking. VNav, that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. It's an incredibly complicated system, so I'm not surprised it's taking so long. I was actually impressed they got holds to work, because of how many ways you get into them. But yeah, this does not look right. Let's go back to our flight plan. SBOV, hold. Yeah, interesting. Let's try... What else can we try? See if we can hold at KPG. Ah! Yeah. Alright, I guess change of plans. I don't think we'll be able to try this tonight. So I installed the experimental version. I know they merged it with the development version, so maybe it's only functional in development, which is unusual. Usually they have all the features available in experimental, but of course experimental is more prone to bugs. So apologies, Ivan. I don't think we'll be able to try the hold tonight. I'll try again when we're closer, but yeah, it's not looking good. But if you did want to check out a good video on the feature, I think EasyJet Sim Pilot did a good one earlier today. So I'm going to take a quick look and see if I can learn more about where we're actually flying tonight. So we left Bali. We're making our way to Australia on 2-hour legs at a time. So between Bali and Darwin, which is where we'll be entering Australia, is an airport with the ICAO code of Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango. It's the Tari International Airport. As you saw by the chart, it is tiny. But they manage about 250 flights per week. And they do have routes between Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango and Darwin. So when we do fly from there to Darwin, we'll likely be able to pick up an actual route. Yeah, but unlike other airports we've flown to on this trip, there's not a ton of information about it. Alright, we should go ahead and calculate our landing configurations. So Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango. Got the METAR. Pull up the runway information. So 335, 335, so there is no slope. Length is 2,500 meters. Our approach speed, we'll have to get our actual performance data in, so let's do that now. So that also means we should get our weather. So it looks like still light winds, 228, good visibility, QNH 1009. Still those cumulonimbus clouds to the southwest that we'll have to watch out for. So 1009. Temperature is 26 degrees. And then 220 at 8. Transition altitude tonight. 130, that looks good. And our approach speed will be 131 knots. So 131. Flaps full, no overweight, reverse thrust, yas. Dry runway altitude is like basically sea level. Oh no, not really. Oh, it's going to be in the hills, I guess. 335. The runway heading is 255. And calculate. Ooh, if we do low, we'll need the whole thing. Though that's dangerous. It doesn't leave us a lot of time. So yeah, I guess we'll do manual. Sorry, medium, rather. Better be safe, eh? So it's set now. And we're about 80 miles from top of descent. Oh, that noise we heard before was us being disconnected from VATSIM. So let's get us back on. And let's fetch our flight plan. Still good. Make sure our microphone still works. Test, test, test. All good. And yeah, to complete this, for the ILS, let's go ahead and put our radio minimums. Class C, ILS 295. 295 for that radio altimeter. All right. Looking good. I'll gain some time back. is a pretty nasty headwind. Enough to make a ding in our flight time. What else can we do? Our TCAS set to below. Do another VATSIM check. Nice and clear. There's a flight out of Darwin heading our direction, heading to Singapore, but we'll be probably well on the ground by the time they pass over us. Checking to see if there's any documentation on bugs with holds in the experimental version. Oh, we've already passed the WAGUP waypoint. Wasn't actually totally aware how far away this star begins. Look at that. Pretty much on a perfect 97-degree bearing from WAGUP. Our way to Kilo Papa Golf. So we're a little bit far, but you can see the clouds are definitely more intense southwest of the airport. So that's what we were told to watch out for. On the Oh, interesting. It's just SBOV. Huh. Yeah, so I guess it's just certain waypoints. I bet you it's because they can't compute it for whatever reason. Let's look and see how SBOV looks. Yeah, okay, that explains it. Like, there's no routing at our current speed through SBOV. We are just going too fast for the calculator to work. So, poor Ivan, he's going to miss it. Alright, 10 miles from top of descent. We'll get 4,000 feet dialed in. About 2.5 miles now. And we can buy ourselves some extra time, so open descent, thrust idle. Alright, N1 is starting to pull back. And we're pitching down. And since we're cleared for a below transition level, bring that QNH back. I'm going to go ahead and request the latest METAR just to make sure it still looks good. Hmm. Expected to get the METAR message by now. Oh, there it is. Maybe that's more realistic. Let's print that. We'll just look here though. Whiskey Alpha Tango, it's still 1009. Latest report was at what? Is that correct? I'm saying the last METAR was from a week ago. Am I reading that correctly? From Bali, the 8th of February at 2:30 Zulu, which makes sense. It's still old. But one at 1400 Zulu? Really? Let me see. Let me check on the latest. I can't really explain it because there is METAR data for Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango. What was the METAR on our flight plan? Yeah, that's so weird. It's just a really old report. This is newer. Huh, I guess it's just not great data. Curious if the sim is using this as well, though. Anyways, let's do our approach checklist. Briefing's confirmed, ECAM status is checked. Landing distance is confirmed. Seatbelts are... we'll wait for the seatbelts a little bit. Bow ref is set. Minimums are set. Engine mode selected. Normal. Approach checklist complete. Out of curiosity. Yes, I'm guessing that's the sim is using. Go back to Unicom. Yeah, so we might get surprised by weather we're not expecting. That'll be fun. We may have to cheat on the QNH and update it to the Microsoft Flight Simulator value. We'll worry about that once we're a bit closer. There's land ahead. About 35 miles from the airport. Alright, we're leveling off just to kill some airspeed. Do our 10,000 feet checks at this point. Constraints, we'll get those landing lights on. Seatbelt sign is now on. And now that we've slowed down, let's see if we can get that hold activated. So SBOV, hold, there it is. There it is, so it's predicting a right turn. Inbound course, let's see how this looks to us. And let's take a look at the plan. Will give us a preview. It won't at this point, but it is a right hand. I mean, it's not really the inbound course. It's actually like the outbound course. So let me change that to 2. Well, actually, let's see the SID if it's any different. Sorry, the ILS. The inbound course is 255, and it's a right hand from that perspective. So let's see. Let's go ahead and insert that. That looks right. That looks right. Okay. So, I think we have a hold programmed. Sick. We're going to get a nice flyover of the airport. I'm going to do one of these shots once we're over it. Oh, nope. So I'm trying to position it ahead of time. So I can just switch to it when we're ready. Okay. Update the QNH. Okay, 1009. So maybe it is using that outdated METAR. I'm not sure where it's generating the ATIS though. It's pretty sweet though. I love getting close to the clouds. Just scraping the tops. Alright, there's the airport dead ahead. Landing system online. We're picking up the ILS. Now what I'm curious is if it should go to green dot speed even without activating the approach. That's my assumption. Speed alt. Oh, there's the airport. Runway 7. And runway 25. Turning. And next stop is the whole point in about 14 miles. And while we head there, I'm just going to brief the steps. So when we depart as above, we're going to step down to 3,000, step down to 2,000 to get to the initial approach fix there. About a 5-mile final. What the final approach fix? I always get mixed up what the X stands for. And here's our hold coming up. And we're going down a green dot. Look at that. Look at that. That is fantastic. Let's program our entry. I'm gonna take a screenshot here. This will be the new thumbnail for the video. It's pretty awesome. Or maybe I zoom out and get a better photo of it. Nah. I can get the whole picture here. Yeah, so we'll be teardropping into the hold. Beautiful. Snap that photo. So we'll do one loop around. And when we exit, we'll activate the approach. So approaching as above. We'll see how well we can trace this line. Should be starting our teardrop turn. Oh, interesting. I see. So that part of the teardrop we're actually looking at was the entry. I will admit this is kind of a weird way to enter a hold pattern because the as above waypoint is a literal 180 from the approach. 180 for the ILS. So it's like a really weird approach to fly because you're literally backtracking to the initial approach fix. Over here, we'll just start our wide turn in a second. Enjoy the views. I mean, this must be so hard to achieve. This like level of realism and detail, like every little tree seemingly rendered in 3 dimensions. Like I know it's not a perfect rendering, but when you think about how many objects we're looking at our window right now, and I'm still at 50 frames per second, like come on.
2,500.
That is unreal.
2,500.
I'm also
2,500.
I'm also impressed that the plate indicates a hold at 4,000 feet when it doesn't put you very high above the ground. Alright, so now we're teardropping in. We're going to fly direct to Esbov. And then we'll be flipping around. And we'll fly one circuit, and then we'll continue. I also do want to time it. Because I think you're supposed to fly, is it a minute each way? So I know we can exit the hold by doing like a direct to the waypoints. I think we can also, I think we can go back into the hold menu to cancel it. I'm going to try to exit it by activating the approach phase. We'll see if that works. Alright, so once we level off, I'll activate the chrono. Should level off at 75 degrees. And let's start. And it should take us about a minute before we activate our next turn. Just chilling in the hold. About 10 seconds away from the turn. Yeah, and I mean that's about spot on. That's about spot on.
2,500.
Yeah, it's a little subjective when you when the turn starts or stops, you know. That's really impressive. All right, so then once we're back on heading 255, we will activate the approach phase. Now, if that doesn't work, it will give us enough time to course correct. Oh, roughly a minute to course correct. Alright, leveling out, and let's give this a shot. Activate approach phase. I guess we'll go ahead and exit. Let's do that instead. Let's arm the approach. Loc star. Cat 3 dual. Alright, we'll head down to 3,000. Perfect. We're moving on to the next waypoint. So I chickened out there a little bit. Like, it wasn't clear that activating the approach would stop the hold. But it was easy enough on the flight plan page just to do it. I don't want to play people's lives. Alright. Speed checked. Flaps 1. Yeah, speed checked. Flaps 2. Tari traffic,
500.
Indonesia 9084 on 7 mile final for a runway 25. Speed brakes armed. Lights on. Speed checked, flaps 3. Glide slope star. Speed checked, flaps full. Glide slope. So our missed approach is 1500. So we'll just get that in there.
Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.
Landing checklist. Cabin crews advised. Auto throttles on speed. Auto brake as required. ECAM memo, no blue. Landing checklist complete. Slight crosswind.
$1,000. 500.
Try to get back on center line.
400. 300. 200. 100. 50, 40, 30, 20, retard, 10, 5,
Reverse green, decel. 70 knots. Rolling out. Here's Alpha. I don't think that was too bad. We'll just cruise off the runway. Tari traffic, Indonesia 9084 is clear of runway 25. Tari traffic. Alright, we get the parking brake set here where we do our after landing checklists. So, flaps retracted. Spoilers are disarmed. APU, let's get that sucker on. 1, 2, 3. Radar coming off. Predicted weather wind shear system is off. After landing checklist complete. Do a few other cleanups here, get the landing system off. What else do I want to do? I want to get the lights off. Lights to taxi, get the landing lights off. Strobe back to Atau. And I think that is all good. So let's go find a place to park. This is a procedurally generated airport, so I'm not expecting anything fancy. There does seem to be a place over there to park. Is that just a random dude over there? Oh, it looks like a fuel box. Is he our guy? Like, are we going to GA parking? And he's gone. It's cool they have fuel boxes here, but... Alright, I'm just going to turn. I'm just going to park wherever we can. Those lights off. Welcome to Tari, friends. Well, regulations here coming into stand at 5. Oh no, don't stop moving. At 5 knots or less. We're a bit lighter now, so it wants to speed up a bit more. Brakes remain incredibly sensitive. And let's say that's close enough. Alright. Parking brake engaged. Confirmed APU is available. We'll shut down engines 1, engines 2. Seatbelt signs coming off. Welcome to Tari. Last stop before we actually get to Australia, where it will just be stunning photogrammetry and custom scenery and landmarks and airports. It's going to be a fun trip. Thanks to you guys for sticking with me this far. Let's go ahead and do our parking checklist. Get our APU bleed on. I'm going to assume we don't have external power available, so we'll be on APU until we're ready to shut down. Engines off, seatbelt signs off, external lights as required. We can get that beacon off now. Strobes full off. Fuel pumps we could shut down because we don't need them for the APU. Park brakes and shocks as required, and parking checklist complete. Alright, so I think we'll go ahead and secure the aircraft. Brake temperature is checked. Go ahead and turn the IRSs off. Crew supply is coming off. We'll keep it. Yeah, I guess we could turn the APU bleed off now. We'll assume passengers are offloaded. Turn the emergency lights off. And last thing to do is APU and battery, but before we do that, we'll do the courtesy shutdown. Where we leave everything pretty much as we left it. Fully cold and dark. Make sure these displays, you know, last for many, many flights to come. Don't want to burn these pixels longer than we have to. Alright, and then overhead. Alright, and now let's get nav and logo lights off and shut that APU down. Now we'll take some time to kind of run out of juice and spool down. There we go. And last thing to do is the batteries. Right. Now we are fully cold and dark. Well, that's another one in the bag, friends. This is... we'll see this livery one more time before we put it on the shelf. Oh, our guy's back. Hi, Guy. From here, we're heading to Darwin. We'll be in the Indonesia one livery one last time, and then we're going to transition over to Qantas, which will be in for the duration of our time in Australia. I'm hoping to see some epic outback views, some awesome custom scenery, some photogrammetry cities. We're going to Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, I think is the name of the city. So we'll get to see some good scenery on the way. I'll download anything premium along the way. And maybe we'll fly through some weather. I don't know. I don't know what weather in Australia is like right now. But man, we've been really lucky with the weather. And when we're talking about lucky with the weather in the sim, that kind of means unlucky. Because of course, it's a lot more fun to deal with the weather when there's no stakes involved. We've been flying in sunny skies for quite a long time. But yeah, hopefully we'll have adventures to talk about in the Down Under. See you then. This is Mike November Whiskey.